Up next, Authentically Detroit sits down with University of Detroit Mercy student, founder and executive director of the Steen Foundation, and Skillman Foundation trustee Jeremiah Steen. But first, this week's hot takes from the Detroit Free Press and Chalkbeat Detroit. Mayor Mike Duggan proposes $156 million budget surplus spending to Detroit City Council after a $1.5 billion District Detroit build-out snags a key vote. And Detroit literacy and transportation get big support in Whitmer budget plan. Keep it locked. Authentically Detroit starts after these messages.
Founded in 2021, the Stoudemire is a membership-based community recreation and wellness center centrally located on the east side of Detroit. Membership in the Stoudemire is available on a sliding scale for up to $20 per year or 20 hours of volunteer time. The Stoudemire offers art, dance, and fitness classes, community meetings and events, resource fairs, pop-up events, the Neighborhood Tech Hub, and more. Members who are residents of the East Side have access to exclusive services in the Wellness Network. Join today and live well, play well, be well. Visit ecndetroit.org.
Bridge Detroit is your news and engagement platform that is telling the stories of Detroiters rooted by community priorities. Started in 2020 by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Stephen Henderson, the newsroom has already established its footing as the go-to source for hyper-local perspectives that ask the hard questions, brings accountability, and searches out real solutions. It's free to become a member of this award-winning news organization. Visit bridgedetroit.com today to sign up to receive the news delivered right to your inbox. Bridge Detroit, by Detroiters, for Detroiters.
Hey, y'all, it's Orlando. We just want to let you know that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast episode are those of the co-hosts and guests and not their sponsoring institutions. Now, let's start the show. Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the WDET studios. We are content partner to bridgedetroit.com. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Givens-Davidson.
She's back.
I'm back.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people in the city of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. Joining us today is Jeremiah Steen. He is a University of Detroit Mercy student, the founder and executive director of the Steen Foundation, and he is now a Skillman Foundation trustee, the youngest ever. Jeremiah, welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you.
Absolutely.
All right, y'all. Donna, we missed you last week. You all right?
I am so happy to be back. Listen, I was on deadline for a national grant with the National Institutes of Health, which is a 10-year grant. And if we're funded, it'll be $12 million. And my keyboard started messing up. Everything started messing up. And I was like, I am getting this grant in. And so I wasn't certain how long it was going to take me. I didn't even have enough time to text you and say, I'm busy, because I was so busy typing stuff and just trying to get all the little forms together. $12 million. And it's exciting because what it will provide for is a housing vouchers for extremely low-income Detroiters. And the housing vouchers will be used in properties owned by Detroit residents with the goal of helping to improve neighborhood economies among a class of landlords that are most likely to maintain their properties in good condition, have fewer evictions, lower rent rates, and are just more committed. And so if we can do this, and the idea is that we'll work with these landlords to build their capacity, help make their projects cash flow for them, and then we will make sure that they're registered with the city of Detroit, and we'll improve the health outcome of everybody inside that household. Living in a stable rental household, housing is a human right, and this is going to be our first big project towards making it happen. Just pray for it, because this is something that, and it was so important to me.
It's yours.
That, I don't want to claim it, but I'm going to tell you, I put some effort into it. I did all the research, and I must have rewritten that thing about 5 or 6 times, just wanting it to be.
You worked on it for weeks.
As impactful as possible, because it matters. And this is an opportunity for us to demonstrate a structural change effort.
Absolutely.
So it was a really meaningful day for me, and I really apologize. I missed the Pimpet Chronicles. I missed the Pimpet Chronicles. Me, you can't think of a better.
Tanisha Brignoni was. Oh my gosh!
Listen, I just want you to understand how much affinity I had for much of what she said. Now, mind you, God, I've been blessed because I get it all from one man. Thank you, Kevin.
Lord.
But I do understand the need for women to take control. I respect that. When she talked about Idlewild, I went to Idlewild every summer. My grandmother had a house up in Idlewild. And Baldwin, I was texting you. Baldwin is my place. We used to go up to Jones Ice Cream and get ice cream. Went to the drive-in theater. So I really, she resonated with me.
Oh, that's
and
great.
The fact that she was a filmmaker, so you did a great job interviewing her, but I had some Pimpet questions for the Pimpet Chronicles, and I didn't get a chance to ask them, so we have to bring her back.
You got to come back on. You got to come back on. Tanisha Brignoni, come back on. It was fun. We had a good time. Jeremiah, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good today. It's been a busy day, but I'm doing pretty good.
A busy day?
Yeah.
Yeah? You ready to get into it?
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right, let's get into it. It's time for Hot Takes, where we run down some of the week's top headlines in the city of Detroit. For Hot Takes, Mayor Mike Duggan proposes a $156 million budget surplus spending to Detroit City Council. All right, so here are the details of the story. Public development incentives for the proposed $1.5 billion District Detroit build-out won a key approval Wednesday night and can now head to Detroit City Council for a possible vote next month. But on Thursday, the Detroit mayor announced that he's asking City Council to approve a $156 million in expenses toward neighborhood and transportation improvements and protecting retiree pensions. That cliffhanger is coming in 2025. Duggan is seeking to amend the city's current fiscal year budget by spending surplus funds from 2021 to 22 fiscal year using $86 million in neighborhood capital improvements such as park renovations, blight remediation, tree removal, and sidewalk replacement. The mayor also wants to use $70 million to bolster the city's retiree protection and risk management fund, which the city created as a strategy to meet pension obligations. It's looming. If approved, the breakdown of expenses would include $20.5 million toward neighborhood sidewalk replacement program to address about 70,000 damaged sidewalk slabs, $16.2 million to renovate more than 20 city parks on a faster schedule than previously planned, $13 million for demolition of dangerous or unsalvageable buildings that are not able to be funded through proposal in bonds, $5 million to remove thousands of dangerous and dead trees, and $19.9 million to cover the cost of replacement cars for the Detroit People Mover and part of that cost of reusing the dairy cattle barn at the former state fairgrounds for use as a new transit center for DDOT. And finally, $17.9 million in other one-time expenses, including replacement bullet-resistant vests for police officers, elections equipment, citywide blight mapping, city fleet electrification, and pandemic response. Shout out to Dana Affini at the Detroit Free Press for reporting. Donna, what say you?
Wow.
It's a lot.
That's what I say. I have so many thoughts, and I don't know if I'm going to get them all out in the right way. None of these things, other than more police spending, is bad. You know, anytime the mayor wants to spend any money, a good portion of it has to go to demolition because it is the city's favorite activity. It's interesting to me because, first of all, sidewalk repairs, parks, all of these things are good. I don't know where these things are going to be done, but I imagine they're going to be in places where the city has already decided they want to invest more money, which is in the strategic neighborhoods. And so we keep on piling into those neighborhoods and removing dead trees and coming up with resources for that. We've had a spate of violence in Detroit. We have so many people who are emotionally harmed. And whether it is from the federal, state, or city level, what I don't hear people talking about is reinvesting and supporting our families. We talk about helping our kids. We talk about helping schools, we talk about everything, but our families are suffering. I talked earlier about the need for housing vouchers or some type of remedy to help ensure people have a safe place to live. The numbers of Detroiters who are displaced or in need of better housing are staggering. We know that there's a report that there's $38,000 in 38 homes in dangerously poor repair in the city, and I'm part of an initiative that will repair about 2,000 of them. The mayor has an initiative that will repair about 2,000 of them. But I want you to think about the scale of 2,000 homes at a time versus 38,000. And I would love for the mayor to spend every dime he could in every pot of funding fixing up homes like he does demolishing them. But unfortunately, demolition is always going to be prioritized over making sure people have a safe place to live. And there's data out that in the nation we have 7 million homes that are that we need 7 million more housing units for extremely low-income people. Not the people who we consider low-income at 50% of the AMI, but people who are making $10,000 a year, or $12,000 a year, or $20,000 a year, and have families of 3. People who are really, really struggling. We know that there's a need for 7 million more. And in the city of Detroit, 70,000. Those numbers should be put in front of the mayor and every policymaker every time they say we've got extra money. Because that's where families live inside of housing, but we're not talking about it. So that part is a disappointment to me. Transportation is huge. But when you tell me that your transportation plan is to fix the people mover, so we're going to have a people mover and a queue line, and you're going to be able to move around, downtown slowly with ease, but you can't move through neighborhoods and access transportation. It just feels like, where's the listening? Where's the concern? If you talk to residents, what are they going to prioritize? It won't be any of those things, not in that order. And certainly if you're talking about sidewalks, let's take sidewalk repairs into neighborhoods that have not gotten any love from the city, really. And let's repair some of those sidewalks. So it's a big no for me, and especially because it's coming at the same time that the mayor is asking city council to approve $1.5 billion in investments in, the district.
One of the things that, I'm contending with in my mind about this is I'm wondering if there have been studies on, aesthetic. I feel like the mayor is really fixated on fixing the aesthetic of Detroit, right? What the physical build out of Detroit, what Detroit actually looks like with demolishing unsalvageable buildings, the parks, right? Taking down like the sidewalks. All of these are a part of the built environment. And I'm wondering like if he got research that says that if you take down buildings and if you fix sidewalks, you're going to fix people, right? Like there tends to be for me like this affinity over people toward physical space and the built environment. And you cannot love the built environment more than you love Detroit's people. I'm actually happy to see that there is an investment in this pension fund because I'm really worried about what that's going to look like because that deadline is looming fast and we got to make good on that.
Right.
So, but I really want to see the research that says my trauma will be solved. My issues with the city of Detroit will be solved because our parks have improved and my sidewalk is improved. And this building, this beautiful building that probably just needed a little TLC, but we're going to tear it down. It's being torn down now. I feel better. I'm healed.
But the thing is, if you're,
I'm safe.
Because you're an optimist, you actually think that's the purpose, is to make you feel better and make you feel safe. I really think that, the city spends a lot of money or creates a lot of projects on public works kind of spending that keeps a lot of people rich and a lot of rich people happy. If you look at resurfacing I-375, if you look down, tearing down all of these houses, we are on track for $1 billion worth of demolitions. And if you look at the mayor's track record working with some of these big contracting firms when he was at the airport, when he was supposed to fix up Detroit Public Schools, when he was over the Detroit Medical Center, what you see is some relationships that should be studied, but they're not. They should be evaluated, but they're not. And the question is, even when we were trying to get proposal and funding approved, and the mayor was really pushing for that, and he said, well, you have to make sure there's no delay and there's no slowdown, that they can keep these contracts coming. And the idea is that we're going to keep people at work. But I'm really wondering who wants to ensure these contracts are coming. And so I'm probably more cynical than you in assuming that there are some public purse items. The other thing is that the people who you want to please are not voters, 20% of whom show up at the polls to vote them in every time, but the people who set bond ratings And the people who set bond ratings love demolitions. They love the kinds of things that he's doing because it's fits the formula that they've set forth. If you get a bad bond rating, and it's not science, it's all just a matter of opinion.
Yep, municipal
but
credit.
if you get it's like, when those of us who are trying to have things try to improve our consumer credit so that we can buy things, right? And we can't buy things unless we figure out how to please the people who decide whether or not we are a good risk or not. And if they think we're a bad risk, they charge us more interest. And the same thing with the city. The city cannot survive without a good bond rating. And so, this is where democracy dies. This is where you're not making decisions that are really tethered to where your voters are. At least not all of them. You're tethered
or residents,
to
because I don't want people to misunderstand. I don't want people to misunderstand, because we know that a large amount of Detroiters do not show up at the polls, but you still have an obligation to hear them and to implement plans that are in their best interest. And they know what they need.
Not unless we can get them to the polls. If we can't get them to the polls, then you can ignore them. And the people who you are getting to the polls are the kinds of people who are pleased with the wording, even if they don't understand the impact. Because when you're spending money in the neighborhoods they live in. I would imagine that if I looked at where most of the voters are in Detroit, they're probably living in the strategic neighborhoods, and that's where we're spending our money. And my question is, therefore, how do we get the people who aren't living there to the polls? How do we get the people who aren't benefiting to the polls? But I think it has to be with vision, so that whoever is mayor, whether it's Mike Duggan or somebody else, they understand that you're not just accountable to your buddies who want to make money and the people who decide the credit rating for the city. You're also accountable to the people who are going to vote you in or out of office. And right now, we don't have that power.
Mm-hmm. And I've been saying this for a long time, especially when we talk about the I-375 project and other big projects happening in the city, demolition projects. A lot of people are getting rich. A lot of people are getting rich, and it's not a mistake. It's not a mistake, and it's not a mistake that we don't have the kind of transparency that is required for us to hold accountable contracting and procurement and some of these companies that get these big contracts. I still don't know who is attached to the I-375 stuff yet.
Can I just say this? Because sometimes I criticize freely, but I also like to give praise just as freely when people do the right thing.
Yeah.
Michael Griffey, what an editorial today. I was like, what a column. I woke up this morning and I read a column from Michael Griffey that said all the right things. I was like, I never knew that we could be so aligned in our thinking. And so I just want to honor him for having had the wherewithal to put together an article that really challenges who benefits from this and says we have to ask one additional question: who benefits? He noticed.
And I would like Michael Griffey to practice what he preaches, because he just took a job at ACOM. If you guys are paying attention to how ARPA dollars have been expended, ACOM was one of the first contractors that the city awarded money to the tune of upward of $15 million to track. We still don't know what they're supposed to do, but to track fidelity and some other stuff as it relates to the ARPA spending. So good for you, Michael Griffey, for writing a column on I-375. Show us the actuals.
Listen, I'm just trying to give credit where credit is due. I've been a critic, and I've been a critic, and so I just want to honor this one
Michael
thing.
Griffey.
I don't necessarily like him or his track record. There's things I think are questionable, but when people are right, you need to honor and respect that, and I just want to respect that. ACOM is not surprising to me because, you swim with sharks, then this species of shark is still a shark. But it was a good column. Those were good questions, and I want to say it out loud. Good job,
right. Shout
Michael
out
Griffey.
to you, Michael Griffey. We have to have you back on. No, we like Michael. We do. I like Michael. For hot takes, we have about a minute left. So what we're going to do is we're going to tease it up, and then we're going to come back with it. Detroit literacy and transportation get big support in Whitmer's budget plan. That's out of Chalkbeat Detroit. Kobe Levin and Ethan Bacali are reporting. But before we get to that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Founded in 2021, the Stoudemire is a membership-based community recreation and wellness center centrally located on the east side of Detroit. Membership in the Stoudemire is available on a sliding scale for up to $20 per year or 20 hours of volunteer time. The Stoudemire offers art, dance, and fitness classes, community meetings and events, resource fairs, pop-up events, the Neighborhood Tech Hub, and more. Members who are residents of the East Side have access to exclusive services in the Wellness Network. Join today and live well, play well, be well. Visit ecndetroit.org.
Have you always dreamed of being on the airwaves? Well, the Detroit Eastside Engaged Podcast Network, or DEEP for short, is here to make that dream a reality. Located inside the Stoudemire, the DEEP Network offers studio space and production staff to help get your podcast idea off the ground. Doesn't take a whole lot of work to get started. Just visit the Authentically Detroit page at ecn-detroit.org or call Sarah at 313-948-0344.
All right, welcome back to Authentically Detroit with Jeremiah Steen. For Hot Takes, Detroit literacy and transportation get big support in Whitmer budget plan. This is Kobe Levin and Ethan Bacali from Chalk Beat Detroit. Governor Whitmer's education budget proposal includes $103 million in new funding for Detroit education programs, signaling a commitment from state government to invest directly in the city's education future as Democrats take control in Lansing. Whitmer is proposing a $1.5 billion increase in state school funding, or 9%, including a 5% increase in per pupil funding that would reach every school in the state. DPSCD would get $94.4 million to support literacy programs. The Goal Line, which is a local after-school and student transportation program, will get a one-time investment, $6 million, and the Detroit Parent Network, a nonprofit, will get $3 million to help with outreach about literacy programs. That's in addition to proposed funding for tutoring and mental health programs, which will benefit students statewide, but are particularly needed in Detroit given the high rate of COVID deaths and widespread virtual learning. Whitmer proposed the DPSC literacy programs as part of a settlement in the 2016 Right to Read lawsuit, y'all remember that, against the state, in which a group of DPSC students charged that the state violated their constitutional right to a basic education by failing to teach them to read. Whitmer settled that case, agreeing to pay damages to the students and to propose $94.4 million for literacy programming in DPS every year as long as she is in office. And your colleague, Jeremiah, Angelique Power says the governor's proposal includes the kind of investments Detroiters have long championed. This is parents and educators' voices being heard. Donna, Jeremiah, what say y'all?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Angelique Powers on that. I'm just curious as to what role youth are going to play and how that money is allocated, and where and when will the voices be amplified, and when that. I mean, in regards to the metrics that are going to be needed when identifying what literacy programs are working and which ones aren't. So I'm just curious as to how that money is going to be allocated, and then who's going to be the group of folks that decide this was a successful venture.
Goal Line, I mean, I have nothing to say about Goal Line other than, come on.
That's the busing
I know
thing,
it is.
right?
It's the little thing where you take the kids from school to school to
right,
school.
I remember Duggan talking about that in one of his State of the City.
And it's in Northwest Detroit, is serving the Bagley School District. I actually went to Bagley, so shout out to Bagley, but I don't think that that's necessarily the best use of funds. I would need evidence that this is a good use of funds. It feels like we are supporting a lot of, these experimental programs that are designed by politicians and by corporations, not necessarily by people inside the community, with the exception of Detroit Parent Network. I have a couple questions, though. It feels to me as though we still are not looking at some of the barriers. There are not a lot of tutors that you're going to be able to hire with that money. Are we going to pay students to be tutors? Peer tutoring actually works. Is there some way for us to figure out how to go to non-traditional sources to get some of these needs met? We really need to ramp up our community mental health systems. Are we talking about doing some things to help, attract people to community mental health jobs? Because the reality is there's also not enough therapists. The city is already, I think they said Detroit needs 10 more therapists. In another Bridge Detroit article, there's 10 schools don't have counselors. So I think that we have to look at access to supply of that. And then also, children live with families. Children live with parents. And when parents struggle, high school children especially really struggle. A lot of times couch surfing because there's no regular place to stay.
Facts.
And so many of the young people we need stable homes. And so I wish that we could look at children and families as being one unit. I understand we need to target children. I think, working with Detroit Parent Network is great, but there's other things Detroit Parent Network has done in terms of investing in parenting skills, parenting knowledge, parenting advocacy, and doing that alongside youth advocacy so that you're building power and you're also building bridges between adults and children in our community, because it feels like we're taking on one after another, and it's great. Like, you're 17 and everybody loves you and everybody's doing these resources, and you turn 25 and you become
what happens after the cap and gown?
You don't exist. You don't exist anymore. And we know that all the way up until 26, brains are not completely formed, and we have so many bad things that happen.
Parents' insurance.
Exactly. So I just feel like there's more that can be done, and those of us who are working in communities have a lot to say, and I hope we get heard.
That's the point that I was going to make. I would like to see this process become way more democratic than it has been in the past, including the point that you make, Jeremiah, about making sure that the voices of young people are implemented in these plans. I want to remind everyone that the Detroit Public School Community District got about $1.2 billion in ARPA money, right? Was there a democratic process to allocate those funds? There really wasn't. There was no process. And so I am hoping that with this influx of money, that, the public will have its say. In a real democratic process, not just having to show up at the school board and fuss, but really an engagement process that engages the young folks who will be on the receiving end of whatever impact this money has, as well as folks who are tuned in, families who are tuned in to this. This is monumental money. ARPA was monumental, and we got new buildings, and again
Right.
with the buildings, right? So
new buildings, but at Southeastern, the students are still at home, and we offer to host students at our offices. Other community partners offer to host them in places where they could be in contact with each other, where they could get support, where they could have access to our really good internet versus maybe the hotspot that the school district sends them home with. But the district declined and said, we'll just let people keep on learning from home. The other thing I want to say is the district has set up a lot of contracting opportunities, but when you give me a contracting opportunity that pays per pupil, I think I wanted to charge something like $38 per pupil, and they were like, we were having a conversation about whether that's too much. When that's what we're doing, partner with a community organization. We do a lot already with Detroit Public students, but I think that I don't know that the district knows how to be a good partner or how to engage in contracting where they can share responsibility. We all care about the same kids. We went into Southeastern and started working with young people before we got $1 to do so.
Facts.
Okay?
Facts.
We did it because we felt like we needed to be there, and I was just like, okay, well, let me see if this funder will let me use this money in this way, and they did, right? Now, hats off to the Skillman Foundation, because the Skillman Foundation gave us dollars. I was like, whoa, we're getting paid for our work now. We're able to do a better job with it. But we were there before we got paid out of love for these kids. And our first group of kids is graduating from college in May.
Yes,
And
TJ
so,
is coming out in May.
Yes, listen, I'm
Oh
so
my
proud
gosh.
because we have college graduates, and we're not talking about somebody who was on the road to college graduation. Let's just say that, right?
He's been on the show.
He's been
Y'all
on
heard
the
his
show,
story.
and he was real honest, okay? And so to be able to do that, we see ourselves as partners, not competition. But if it takes a village, we're the village. DPSCD, we're the village. You've got a faith-based program. You need a community-based program. Work with churches, but work with us too.
Yeah, don't be
because
scared of
everybody's
us.
not in church,
Don't
and
be
everybody,
scared of
and we've
us.
been doing a lot of the work. It's not even show some respect.
Respect.
Put some
us.
respect on our name, right? Well, there's a way for you to work, and Panitha sat there with Crystal and said, "Can you set up a meeting between Detroit 21 community development organizations and Dr. Vitti?" That was 2 years ago, at least. It was actually 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago at Mackinac. Between then and now, not a single meeting.
Dr. Vitti don't like doing meetings and stuff like that. He don't like doing podcast interviews.
He meets with. Well, he wouldn't meet.
doesn't
Yeah, he
like,
wouldn't. Do, right.
Look, we gotta move on.
But no, I'm just saying. I'm not. It's not Dr. Vitti. This
Yeah.
is. We have to partner together.
Yeah.
Some of these funds are not spent wisely. They would rather spend it on a private contractor, and you say some of those private contractors don't have a good track record. We know that. Than on a nonprofit contractor that has a good track record. And we've got to change that around. Now I'm done.
All right. If you have topics that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm cracking myself up at Twitter. Or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Shout out to Brenda Butler for sending us the first hot take. We want to talk to Jeremiah Steen. He's our guest today, a young mogul in the making. Jeremiah is a student at the University of Detroit Mercy, pursuing a degree in communications. He is a development associate of institutional giving for the National Audubon Society. Jeremiah founded and serves as the executive director of the Steen Foundation.
Ooh.
And I've seen this man give out money, positively impacting the socialization of youth, promoting strong, inquisitive thinking, and helping teens to advance their view of community through a creative perspective. He's a board member of the trashmob.eco and Equal, and served in the inaugural cohort of the Skillman Foundation's President Youth Council. He is also a Be Me alum. The Steen Foundation is a youth-led philanthropy based in Detroit, Michigan, aimed at investing in organizations that focus on the amplification of youth voice in education, environmental stewardship and conservation, arts and culture, political advancement, and career development using the critical youth theory model.
Wow.
Man.
Wow. What were you doing at 21? I know you were doing stuff.
I was being a 21-year-old. I was still in school.
I was at parties and things.
I was being a 21-year-old
I was like, wait a minute.
at Eastern, Michigan.
I was like, I don't know what I want to do. You are an
hood rat
amazing
things.
young man. So I just want to honor you because we don't always honor young people as being great.
Facts.
And a lot of people like to talk about their childhoods. Like, you know, when I was a child, we did this right. We weren't doing this, okay? So I just want to acknowledge that. Jeremiah, where'd you go to high school?
Went to University of Detroit, Jesuit High School.
Okay. And how did you get involved with the Skillman Foundation?
On accident. I actually coached soccer on the east side in Baldock Park for 8 years. I was doing that for free. I coached 2 undefeated teams. I just loved it.
A little slight flex there.
No, yeah, I mean they're phenomenal.
I coached 2 undefeated
I mean,
teams. Not just 2
my
teams
kids were good.
undefeated.
No, my kids were good. Forget me, they were the real stars. But the director thought it would be just a good fit for me. So he and then I think Eagle Sports received some Skillman funding as well. So they were probably trying to. He was like, oh, you know, we'll have someone on the President's Youth Council. But he nominated me, and then I had an interview. That interview went. I thought they were gonna say no, this guy is crazy. You know, he shouldn't, you know, be here. But they let me on. And then soon after, I met Angelique Powers at the Urban Consulate, and then from there.
Wait, you met Angelique Power at my interview with her at the Urban Consulate?
Yes.
Okay, take us back to that moment.
Yeah.
I want to know how that happened.
Yeah, so Bethany Howard, who were mutual friends of ours, I think all of ours, she worked at the Eastside Community Network as well, invited me to come to Urban Consulate to come hear Angelique speak. So I said, okay, I'll come and show up. And I came, and I just heard her speak so passionately about youth and the role youth should play when making decisions. Because I was actually kind of quiet as kept. I was going to quit as kept. I was like, I felt as if this wasn't going to be a good fit for me. But after hearing Angelique speak, I thought, hey, this is where I belong.
See, that's the kind of stuff we need to document. That kind of connection happened in that space. That's amazing.
You're amazing, Orlando. Because he's saying that because he made that. I'm just joking.
No,
I'm just
I'm
joking.
so
He
serious.
is.
No,
He is. And he is amazing. And he's done amazing things with youth. Even before he did any of this, he was working with young people on the East Side.
Yes.
But, you know, when I think about youth, and a lot of times people have this way of thinking that you have to have worked a long time and done things a long time to get smart. But when I think of most of the movements in the United States and most of the movements in the world, it's young people. It's not 60
Donna.
years old, 60 years. By 60, you're like, oh, that won't work. No, we can't do that. Young people have a way of seeing and of still believing in things and being optimistic. You're not jaded, right?
That's
So
true.
what is your vision for what we could be doing differently as a city, young leader?
I mean, for me, I'm really, especially at Skillman, I'm actively trying to embed critical youth theory, which you discussed already, into their way of operating. Really just how many youth can we bring to the table as possible? How many people can we bring to the table as possible? Why is there a table? In that sense, and really just trying to understand what we're doing and how we're going about doing it to impact the most people as possible.
We didn't discuss critical youth theory in depth. Talk a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, so me and my colleague, Jelani Stowers, we are the co-founders of critical youth theory, even though we want all youth to own it. It's the intentional resistance of a set of ideas that have culturally and historically stopped young people from holding positions of power by inspiring true innovation and ethical action with lasting impact.
Is this thing on?
So, can we talk about power for a minute?
Oh,
Absolutely.
man.
So, we're a community development corporation, and we have all of these coalitions and other groups that are working to do planning on the East Side and raise their voices. And I strongly believe we should not be doing this work without youth at the table beside us. Do you agree with that?
I agree. Yeah, and that's some of the work that we're doing with Skillman. Is our Gen Z design sessions. It's actually announced at Mackinac.
She had it.
Yeah.
You guys were on the panel at Mackinac. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was really
It
exciting.
was the youngest panel
Speakers.
ever.
Yeah.
Youngest speakers ever. Go ahead.
It was really exciting. Mackinac's a strange place. That was my first time at Mackinac. It's a strange
We know.
place. We can spend a day on that. But no, it was really exciting. Being there and then just having Angelique be our champion, quite honestly, because when we first got there, people were looking at us like, who are these people? Who are these kids in here? We were all of color, so they're like, oh, okay. So Angelique kind of just showing us around and giving us the inside scoop that we belong here and reminding us that our voices matter really shaped that. And so we made an open call out to, different organizations to actually bring youth to the table. So Skillman, before I became a trustee, I have to add, is that they hired the Steen Foundation to actually oversee their Gen Z design sessions, which allow youth to actually advise CEOs of companies on how to solve an issue that's impacting their organization. So we're actually going to be meeting with the city of Detroit, the neighborhoods department, and we might have the mayor there as well, to where we'll be advising them on how we can get youth involved in community service and development.
So ECN needs to have a conversation with you as well.
That'd be great.
Because I'm very passionate about it. I feel very strongly about it. And I sometimes get resistance. And I don't get it. One of the things I heard is, well, they're bored with the topics that you're talking about. I'm sorry. Talking about
young folks?
air quality, bad air quality is boring, I guess. But it's also something that young people
You got that feedback from the city?
No. I didn't get it from the city. I heard it from some people. I'm not going to name names, but if you're listening, you know who you are. And my feeling is that young people are capable of handling complex topics that are serious and require study. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I just think
He's
that,
like, we're
I
complex.
mean, there's a village that's needed, right? I mean, like for example, you provided me with some insight on a proposal from the governor that I never saw. So I think if the information was provided and then someone takes the time to actually ask them, what do you think about this? I mean, so much change can happen in that space, but the information needs to be accessible to youth in that way.
Yeah. I mean, when 70-year-olds are designing communities for, no offense, none of us live forever, okay? This is not going to be your community forever, okay? There's a group coming up underneath you that's either going to be involved in designing the community they want or they're going to leave. Do you agree with that comment?
I agree with it, but I also So I've been taught by so many grassroots organizers. Bryce Detroit, I got to shout out Aaron Martinez,
Okay.
All right.
Onyx, Ingrid LaFleur. I mean, folks who are considered elders in the community who I need, who I look
gosh.
to consistently.
Bryce is now an elder. Bryce
Yeah.
Detroit, you hear that?
Sorry, Bryce. But just that co-collaboration is needed. So not pushing the older folks aside.
No, it's partnership.
Partnership.
We
yeah.
function in partnership because, the thing is that, and I just believe in diversity anyway.
Intergenerational
intergenerational. I mean, this is
engagement.
what we are. We're
what this is.
intergenerational, right?
Yeah.
I have experience. I have knowledge. I have things I know. You have optimism. You have youth. You have energy. You have things you know. We have different perspectives. When we come together, we can change the world. Even when Martin Luther King was marching, he was not only listening to young people, he was the face of the movement. He was the courage of the movement. He was the one who get people activated. He was the one whose life was taken, right? Mm-hmm. But the reality is there were old people in the room with him, helping him to, listen, man, let me tell you how this goes, because that's the way the world should work. This separation of young people from adults is really troubling to me. I love being around young people. I mean, it gives me energy. I feel like I learn more. I think I'm still cool.
We do. Yeah,
I know some of the language. I can I can rap a couple lyrics because
gosh.
okay, I can't Orlando.
You know what? We'll be right back. More with Jeremiah Steen after this.
Bridge Detroit is your news and engagement platform that is telling the stories of Detroiters rooted by community priorities. Started in 2020 by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Stephen Henderson, the newsroom has already established its footing as the go-to source for hyperlocal perspectives that ask the hard questions, brings accountability, and searches out real solutions. It's free to become a member of this award-winning news organization. Visit bridgedetroit.com today to sign up to receive the news delivered right to your inbox. Bridge Detroit, by Detroiters for Detroiters.
Have you always dreamed of being on the airwaves? Well, the Detroit Eastside Engaged Podcast Network, or DEEP for short, is here to make that dream a reality. Located inside the Stoudemire, the DEEP Network offers studio space and production staff to help get your podcast idea off the ground. Doesn't take a whole lot of work to get started. Just visit the Authentically Detroit page at ecn-detroit.org or call Sarah at 313-948-0344.
That's not.
All right, we're back on Authentically Detroit with Jeremiah Steen. Jeremiah, I want to ask you this question. As a young person, you are a student, you are a trustee, and you are an executive director. Talk to us a little bit about how you're able to effectively do all of the things, because that's a lot. That's a lot. How do you care for yourself, and how do you do everything?
Yeah, I would say, it all fits on one sticky note, right? Like all the tasks and things fit on one sticky note. So I just look at it all as one big job in that way, and try to tie as many things together as possible so it can feel like it's one thing, quite honestly. But no, my mother kept me in a lot of different after-school programs. I was always doing something. I was never at home sitting around. So I kind of gotten used to always doing something, not just sitting around. I kind of get uneasy when I'm just sitting around.
Oh, gosh. So what was the impetus for you to start a foundation, right? So how old were you when you founded the Steen Foundation?
I was 17.
You were 17 years old when you founded a foundation. What was the impetus for that? Talk a little bit about the work, in addition to the Gen Z work that you all are doing with Skillman, that the Steen Foundation is doing here in the city.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was two starts to it, I would say. The first start was I was actually I was a part of the MoCAD Teen Council, where I was we had to plan a youth-led art exhibition. And we planned this event for, let's say 3 months, where youth literally made all of the decisions. And when we got to the day of the exhibition, the opening reception, an hour before the event started, I see this group of, a group of folks who don't look like me, walking through, who were funders of this specific exhibition. And they went through the exhibition and started taking down the art pieces that we had carefully curated and planned.
Just to see them and touch them?
No, they said that they felt like these pieces did not align with their overall mission and goal. But this is a youth-led event. We've planned this out. We've come to this agreement an hour before, and then one of the pieces that was taken down was one of the people who were actually served on the council. So my thought in that moment there was, what if the funder was a youth? Or what if the funder actually understood the role of youth-led? So that was where the initial thought came from. And then months later, I actually got an opportunity to go work with Jane Goodall. I was the youngest Jane Goodall Roots and Shoots Fund 2 National Fellow, and really learned the power of philanthropy and storytelling, community development, and service learning. So I returned home and used the funding from Fund 2 to start my foundation. And during that time, it was around 2018, is when DPS had a major budget cut. And so we started to work with our community partners to actually, because they were taking our art classes, STEM programs, and musical theater from the schools. So we worked with our community partners, MoCAD, Afrofuture Youth, and then Black to the Land Coalition. And we actually started to provide some of those programs. And then COVID hit, so we weren't allowed to go inside the schools anymore. So we pivoted our approach just a tad. Because we noticed that a lot of youth, their internships and the fellowships were being canceled because of budget cuts at these different organizations, which uncovered a greater issue, is that there's a lack of investment in developing sustainable youth career pathways. So now we provide those internships and those fellowships to go about doing that. But it's youth-led, because I run the first Black youth-led foundation in Detroit, and I think Michigan. I'm still holding out on that, but Detroit for sure. That's
probably
operational.
in the country
That is
too.
pretty.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I'm just moved.
What were you
beyond
doing
measure.
at 17, Donna Givens Davidson? Not
Oh,
starting
my
a
goodness.
foundation.
I was really into the party life. I did. I liked to party when I was young. I mean, I didn't really have a sense of myself. And I always say this to people when we talk about working with young leaders. When I was 17, I didn't think of myself as a leader. I was not an outgoing person in that way. I was opinionated, so people may or may not have liked my opinions, but I didn't see myself as a leader. I had to learn that. On Saturday, Charlonda Buckman did her book. Charlonda Buckman Davis did her book talk about her book Ardent Advocate, and she is now an assistant superintendent for Detroit Public Schools. And they talked about when she was young, and she was so shy she wouldn't even look at people. It's hard to believe.
That is very hard to believe.
Right, but they talked about how incredibly shy she was, and because many 17-year-olds don't carry themselves with that level of confidence. And shout out to your parents, right? Because that comes from
my next question.
Yes.
Who raised you?
Exactly.
A woman named Anquinetta Jones. She could. I have to shout my mother out. She is phenomenal. Her investment in me so early on is really, quite honestly, the foundation of my foundation. The amount of investment she put into me towards my aspirations. I want to make sure that every young person is able to have that type of investment put in their lives in that way. So yeah.
She did a great job. And I also want to credit you. Because, you are, we're born with these spirits, and she had great material to work with, right? But I want to ask you a question. I'm serious. I think, I really do believe children come through us, but not from us, right? We're children of God. And we come and we already
Just
have
a
been
vessel.
charged up. We're the vessels. And so sometimes we want to own and shape and control who our children are. And the beauty of parenting is trying to figure out how to help them become who they are. And it's not going to be your idea of who they are. And that's a challenge for many of us. But I do have a question about that project that they took down in this, when they were taking them down and saying this at MOCAD, because I want to understand why. There had to be a reason why. Do you know specifically what they thought did not fit the theme?
Yeah, well, the young person on it, because it had graphic language on it, but the Contemporary Art Museum, MOCAD, it's a contemporary art museum, and they actually speak against having any form of censorship on their art pieces. So we were very confused as to why this was taken down. So there was a lot of conversation, and the young lady started crying. So in that moment, I was like, there has to be.
Right. So since
And let me
censorship,
say this to y'all, in case y'all don't know this, young people cuss.
yes.
Kids be cussing.
And some of us older people do too.
Yeah, right.
So where'd y'all learn it from?
These kids
But I think
cuss.
we're it's very much into respectability, and it's
Facts.
interesting how sometimes we are very tolerant of how people dress, unless you dress like a black young person. Very tolerant of how people speak, unless you speak like a black young person. And so there's racism that's involved in the silencing and respectability mindset that's there. We had an event, and a couple of years ago we were hosting an event, and we were
I
going to
remember
have this event
This
for
was more
youth.
than a couple of years ago. I was still there.
You were still there?
Yes.
Okay. So we had one of our colleagues that put together a mixtape. And so that morning of the event, I get a call from one of our staff people, we can't use this. And I said, what do you mean we can't use this? Have you listened to some of these words? I said, so here's the deal. If we're going to have a youth event, we got to listen to youth music. We don't get to decide what's appropriate.
No, it's not.
And, my children are very, very quick to point out all of the inappropriate wording in the songs of my childhood because, listen, Prince was my dude, right? And Prince, his first album was, I think it was Prince, but the second one of them was Dirty Minds. And there's some stuff in there that's just raw. And one of the reasons young people like it is because it's raw. Let's be really honest. That's part of the, progression of life is you like things that are going to outrage older people. And so when we act outraged, we actually act, anyway. So I just think that there's that adultism that's there and that we have to be willing to own that and challenge people to stop trying to impose their own ideals. You had the blues, and then you had R&B, and now you got hip hop, and you got nasty stuff all throughout, right?
Yeah.
How do you tackle that?
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important for youth to start to be in control of their narrative and how that's put out. Because, for example, I've served on many youth councils before that the narrative of the youth who serve on these councils is, oh no, they're at risk, they're in need of service.
You better talk.
Oh, they're vulnerable.
Talk.
That's something that we're unpacking with our Gen Z design session. I have a story for that too, which I don't mind sharing. But it's really just giving youth the opportunity to say, no, this is who I am, and this is how I would like to move forward. So that way of operating changed right after that moment. Our youth program producer, she died on the hill. She actually died on the hill of the argument. She actually got removed, and they moved me in place to oversee the MOCAD Teen Council. And I said that these young people will not be taking any more photos that have any flyers that say at risk,
You're not
vulnerable.
tokenizing me, my presence.
And we're going to ensure that these youth have leadership positions within it so that we're a unit. So if anything happens that is in opposition, that we know how to move forward in a productive way, because they're raising millions of dollars of us saying that these are the most innovative youth in the city of Detroit. They're doing all these phenomenal things, and they'll put us out in front of the donors. But as soon as the donors leave, they put us in the back and have us eat pizza, and then
And I have a problem with that too. This kind of youth exceptionalism, creativity, brilliance is not unusual in Black young people.
It's true.
Black youth have changed the whole world of music, design,
Civil
art,
rights.
civil rights. I mean, but creativity is, part and parcel of the
It
game.
is
Okay, if you
intrinsic.
want to if you want to change any style, ask Black young people, not just the ones with money and style and privilege. A lot of times it's those without. This way of trying to say that makes you exceptional because you're good is actually an insult to who you are. You are not exceptional in that. I mean, you're exceptionally self-confident and you've done things exceptionally young, and God bless. But the reality is, that there's many peers. There's so many people who are talented. It's hard for us to just put a handle on all of the talent in Black young people in Detroit, right?
It's true, very true. And I'm push back on that. I'm slowly gaining my confidence too, right? Because I have a stutter, which I'm sure comes and goes, which is very occasional. So really trying to amplify the voices of young people so they can get into these leadership roles while also trying to balance that as well.
That's
as
powerful.
duality.
That's
power.
true,
That
because
vulnerability is powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
And we all struggle with something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you're able to have enough confidence to fight for your own people.
I love
And
it.
you're able to be present and to be a leader in ways that many others don't. But, we have, in other communities that you live in, you don't have gifted and talented schools for the smart kids. Gifted and talented is assumed. But with us, it's like, ooh, they're going to be smart. That's a smart one. That's a good one. And it's more racism to me. And I just always want to challenge those narratives because, again, nobody looked at me at 17 and thought leader.
Jeremiah, I want to ask you right now what you see, because all of your work has this common through line, right? And it is about youth voice and amplification, right? And democratic process. What do you see as the biggest impediment toward achieving that mission?
That's such a good question. I think so many youth don't know what their purpose is yet. No one has taken the time to really just ask them what do you want to do, and then providing them with the resources necessary to help them achieve them. Even though there are a lot of folks who have the resources, the time, and the willingness, but they just seem to not actually start to implement that with us. I think that's the hugest thing, is really just getting youth to really understand. I think that's anyone in general. It's just how phenomenal are you, and then how can I support you in getting you where you want to go. Which is broad.
I think that self-awareness of being phenomenal is lacking. We have some young people who go through school, starting in kindergarten, they start being told they're bad, they're not this, they're not that, they don't measure up. And there's so many ways to measure and evaluate a young person and communicate something negative. A lot of times in our city, that's what it is. How do you reverse all of that negativity to help people relanguage that? Because it's not just at-risk youth. It is the way we talk about young people failing youth.
It's the asset framing.
Underperforming youth, right? We have so many labels. We standardized testing, right? Failing schools. And so you are a young person who goes to a failing school. Does that make you a failure? All of these labels somehow seem to congeal around a young person. Do you work with young people to sort of refute all of those labels?
Yeah, and have them help me,
Yes.
right? In essence, because
Right.
my way of operating may be completely different. My approach to things may be completely different than what the actual need might be. And the first quote that just came to mind was one from Travian Shorters: "You can't denigrate a community that you're hoping to serve. Like
Yes.
it can't.
Travian
it doesn't
is so
work.
good at that asset
Yeah.
framing.
Yeah,
stuff.
asset
Yes.
framing. So that's been the approach, and then how can we get more youth to the table so that they can actually make those decisions that actually lead towards implementation?
So what I'm hearing you say is that you don't just talk the talk, you walk you don't just talk, you walk the walk,
I have
right?
to, yeah.
And what you're doing is by giving people leadership or helping to invite them into leadership, you're demonstrating to them that you see their value. You don't just have to say it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
sometimes we can be very condescending. You have so much value, but you're like, hey, help me lead this. And that's really doing the work.
Yeah, I can't do anything alone. I learned that very early
Yeah.
on. So I need as much help as I can get with anything that I do.
So what is your future when you graduate from college?
Yeah, so my goal is so there's a few things there, right? So the Steen Foundation is currently youth-led, and I want it to remain youth-led. So when I become 25, the Steen Foundation will have a new 21-year-old who's going to lead. We're going to have an internship that's going to turn into a fellowship, and then we're going to have the community decide what young person is going to take the reins of the Steen Foundation for the next 4 years or so until they are no longer youth. And then we're going to invite them to join the board. Because currently the Steen Foundation is youth-led, but we're still at the mercy of adult-led organizations. So now I want to shift my priorities. I'm going to become the chairman of the Steen Foundation. Then I've launched what's called Steen Global Unlimited, which is actually going to be an investment firm, which is going to help build the endowment for the Steen Foundation. But it's all going to be centered around critical youth theory. So any barrier that's getting in the way of young folks, we're going to invest in the work that's helping solve it. So if it's education, we're going to invest in education tech. If it's housing discrimination, how can we invest in more sustainable housing in the community? But just whatever is stopping youth from achieving their aspirations, that's what our investments are going to go towards, and actually allow youth to be a part of that process as well.
I want to make sure that you are also published. I heard you talk a little bit about narrative shifting and changing and asset framing, and especially this critical youth theory piece. It sounds very interesting. So I am inviting you to pen an op-ed for Bridge Detroit. So that we can get you published.
Yeah,
right?
we're gonna have a book out as well. Yeah, we're gonna be inviting youth. So we have a book where we're gonna be inviting youth who are doing phenomenal work in the city of Detroit and beyond, and they're gonna be writing down how they went about that process step by step.
Well, we should talk about that because I can definitely foresee a series of op-eds from young people. We need to give the stage to young people.
It would be really nice for Bridge Detroit to have that space.
Yes.
That every month or
Yes.
every week you add to that and you put it all together.
Yeah.
We also need to get you in with our staff. So we have in-service trainings now every month with the goal of helping to build our mutual capacity around changing the world. And I think that you are bringing something so significant. Most people don't intend to, marginalize young voices. And there's so many ways to do it. You can, with good intentions, say, well, people are too busy to be involved in your work, or with good intentions, they don't understand it, or with good intentions, other things. But I think what you're doing is saying, taking away the excuses and equipping young people and hopefully the adults at working together to create change.
Absolutely.
So you're going to stay in philanthropy, though.
Yeah, I am. That's the goal.
Yeah,
That's
you
the
need
goal.
to be shepherding a purse here in the city of Detroit. Jeremiah Steen, we thank you so much for coming on with us. It's been a long time coming. All right, if you have any topics that you would like discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. We have reached the point in the show where it is time for shout-outs/announcements, what have you. Donna, you got any shout-outs?
I do.
Okay.
Big shout out to Charlonda Buckman Davis, author of Ardent Advocate, the assistant superintendent of Detroit Public Schools, a person who has been a friend of mine since she was 19 years old. And she was made program director under my leadership at Warren County Development Coalition. And, when I went through my first divorce, don't ask me, when I went through my first divorce, Charlonda really was my support system, my rock. She helped me through it. We became very close. And, so she's a person who's doing great things in the world, who is sharing her story. We're going to have her on to share her story here because she's another youth who made change. And I want her to meet you.
Jeremiah, do you have any shout-outs, announcements?
Yeah, I would like to shout out Angelique Powers and the entire Skillman staff for just seeing me, quite honestly. And then my mother. Again.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
I always want to remind folks that there is power in having a witness. And I think it is intrinsic in every human being to want to be seen, heard, and understood. So that's dope. I appreciate you saying that. I would like to shout out, who am I shouting out? Local 4, WDIV. I appeared on Live in the D today alongside Tati. And it was really, really fun. She invited me and we figured out how we want to do it. And so we may have an announcement coming up on some,
He was
something
looking
with,
good too, y'all.
Something with Local 4.
He was looking good. He showed up with that same suit on. I said, look at Orlando doing it.
Thank you, Donna. All right, y'all. We will be here same time next week. Keep it locked with us. Until then, we want you to catch the wave.